So, good evening, one and all. Uh, Thank you all for attending my live session or going to attend in the mere seconds. So, yeah, this program we have hosted it to bring certain topics like what drug designing is all about and what we meant by computer aided drug designing, what is bioinformatics, and all. Let me be very frank with the topic. We are dealing it to the basics, like we are not going digging deeper into the technical aspects because we expect everybody to understand, and all the individuals who are even non-science individuals, they need to be like getting pace with my topic. So first of all, um, yeah, I would just give you from my side a small request about the same old saying nowadays, stay home, stay safe. Because being a life science professional, I know what is the importance of being safer and making a healthier country. So right now we are going through a very bad pace of COVID, and everybody knows that. So I request you all from my side, stay home, stay safe, and even if you are going out on any particular requirement or specific needs, please be safe and protective with your own weapons like your mask, your gloves, your sanitizer, anything for that matter. And I think now the people are more aware than the scientists and professionals, because they have been seeing it in the TV serials and all the way notifications, news and all. So I hope you all are safe, and let's start the session right now. So I think 3 viewers are there. Can you please mention whether I'm clearly audible and visible to all the viewers? We are already on time, pace with the track. So fine. So here, as I said you again, repeating, this session would be very basic, and I'm giving you an insight into what bioinformatics is all about, and what drug designing is meant with respect to bioinformatics. First of all, let me introduce myself to you people. I am Jyotsna Gunlapalli from BioAccess DNA Research Center. I am a senior research associate there. And BioAccess is a research organization where we deal with services and products related to life sciences, which may be microbiology, biotechnology, bioinformatics, and proud to say that we also deal with forensic science, and we are working on this COVID-19 research also. So if anybody is interested in getting more information about our organization, you can ping me personally or you can mail me later. So getting into the topic, what bioinformatics, what computer aided drug designing is all about. But before that, I need to make you people aware of what bioinformatics is, because computer aided drug designing is one minute part of bioinformatics again. So let me tell you what bioinformatics is all about. You might have studied botany, zoology, social science subjects in your schoolings and till your graduation, but when coming to bioinformatics, it's completely new, a new concept, and you cannot restrict it to be a subject. It is completely a discipline. It's an entire discipline. And going to the difference between a subject and a discipline, a subject deals with a narrow boundaries. It is within a narrow boundaries where you know what it contains. But if it comes to discipline, here if I am going to talk about bioinformatics, it is a discipline where it covers, it interlinks the subjects like botany, zoology, but also statistics, physics, analytics, etc., which in a normal sense you cannot even think of related topics. So it's an interdisciplinary subject where the applications of other subjects like statistics and physics and analytics are applied into the biological data for the analysis. And the main motto behind the introduction of bioinformatics is to enhance the rate of research, to make the research a little faster than the regular traditional methods. So coming to what drug designing, computer aided drug designing is all about, here we use this bioinformatics knowledge, we use this techniques or softwares or databases that are into the bioinformatics, use them to analyze the data related to the disease, data related to the chemicals, the drugs, the proteins, the proteomics, the genomics and all, so that we develop a suitable medicine or a drug for a particular symptom. So can I have a suggestion from the viewer side whether I need to be slow, or is it okay, comfortable for you people? So I can see 2 of you watching me. Thank you for the participation. Fine then. I would just proceed in the same pace and try to be a little slow. Yeah. Thank you, Indra, for your for your information that you are getting in my pace. So before going deeper into the drug designing, I just wanted to inform you from my side that like what is the motto behind this session. Why did I select drug designing as a topic for today? Because in the current era, last 40-50 days, people are very busy commenting the scientists, saying that what are these doing, where are they sleeping, why are they not discovering or developing any drug, or why not vaccine, what are these people doing? 2-3 countries are involved, very eminent scientists are there, and what are they doing? But please make it a point that it is very easy and simple to comment, but when it comes to the true terms of designing a drug or releasing a drug, it has a very hectic task. It's not as simple as we say. I can give you a pace that designing a drug or developing a lead molecule that can be a drug might be a little easier when compared to testing its efficiency. Validating is a very big milestone in the concept of drug designing, where we need to check whether a developed drug is really suitable for the human consumption or the consumption by the target organism, and whether it is really working to the point, or it is creating any side effects, or it is causing any long-term hazardous events. That all has to be checked. You cannot simply just develop a drug, release it, and it is going into the market and you mint money. It is not that as simple as we think. So there are different milestones, different hurdles that has to be faced by any scientist, any individual who is into drug designing or drug development, where they need to satisfy all the ethical issues, all the screening parameters before they release any drug into the market. And if I come to the point of COVID-19, if we try to develop a drug and release it right now, it's not that as simple as we say, because it's a very time consuming process, and practically it requires a time. It's not just for saying or for dealing, but it really requires an inbuilt time, because a new chemical, COVID is already known, it is really a new organism. Corona, it's totally a new organism, though a known family, but this particular COVID-19 is totally a new organism whose genetics are just available freshly, not even available long back. So the better option here is not drug designing for COVID-19, but we do drug repurposing. This concept I have already been dealt in one of my publication that has been released last month in Helix International. We have already worked upon the drug molecules which can be suited, the already known drug molecules, or that we call, that concept is termed as repurposing of the drugs. Because COVID-19 belongs to a family of corona group of viruses, or SARS corona group of family. We have tried analyzing their evolutionary basics, and we have also tried the different drugs that were suitable for treating MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, and SARS, severe acute respiratory syndromes, which were worked upon them. That we have tried in silico whether they are really suitable for the genome of COVID-19 or not. We have tried and we have proved certain drugs to be efficient. But again, let me mention you that we did not discover any drug, but we have released certain molecules that are suitable for the use even in the COVID cases. But again, I cannot directly suggest that you go and use it. No, because we are bioinformaticians. If we suggest any drug, again that has to go through a different series of screening processes. Like you have clinical trials. If any one of you in the participants, if they are aware of, we have clinical trials, a concept called clinical trials, where every drug or any component that is synthesized for human consumption has to go through a very critical and very tedious protocol. Phase 1 clinical trial, phase 2 clinical trial. We have a series of phases, even after which you have that post-marketing trials also. And long before you do go for clinical trials and all, you need to get an approval from Food and FDA, Food and Drug Administration. So there are several other screening parameters which a person has to follow, which a department has to follow where they are involved in drug designing. So So that was from our side, where that was our contribution towards this COVID, because even we are not sitting idle. We are trying our level best, BioAxis, and our team is trying our level best to fight against this along with you people. So we have raised certain molecules which might be suitable for this. So that is out our study on COVID. Now coming to drug designing, computer aided drug designing. Let me specify you once again that I am not doing this drug designing, or I am not explaining this drug designing with respect to COVID, because there we do only drug repurposing currently. So, and one more parameter that I have to be mentioning you is, what is the difference between a drug that a lay person imagines it to be and what I am talking about? Because I feel most of my participants are even nonsense professionals. So let me clarify the difference between a drug that in general filmy style of speaking a drug, and what is our concept in drug here is, the narcotic drugs are those that will make a person lose his consciousness or lose his control on his brain actions. So we are not dealing with those narcotic drugs or those drugs which are very harmful to be addicted, or that is a different concept of drugs now. Now what am I talking about is the medicines. In a general term, you can simply say a medicine. But a medicine, before used as a medicine, it is termed as a drug because still it is under testing. Any medicine, before it is applicable directly, you can just term it as a drug. So let me start my session exactly into the computer aided drug designing. Let me define what is computer aided drug designing again. So computer aided drug designing involves utilizing the computer databases related to proteomics, genomics and diseases along with chemical databases to test any component which may be chemical or non-chemical in nature, its activity to subside a symptom or to bring back a condition to be normal. So anything can be a drug for that matter. Drugs are not only chemical components as we generally think of. The moment we say drug, we think it to be a chemical compound, very complex molecule, but it's not like that. Yeah, Neetu, thank you for your participation here, and Subhash, thank you, Amit sir, thank you so much. So yeah, so generally a drug can be a chemical molecule or it may not be a chemical molecule always. It may be even a protein molecule, or to be very clear, it can be a simple lime from your kitchen which can be used as a drug in most of the cases. If I give you a simple example of what drug can be, say if you have gone out on a rainy day, you got wet completely and you are coming back to your house, and in your house you have your grandparents, your parents and even some friends staying at your place. So the moment you enter into your house, the first thing what your grandmother says is, oh clean yourself, first dry yourself, and immediately she brings you a very hot cup of turmeric milk, or it may be tulsi water or something that is completely an herbal extract, a crude kind of treatment which you get from your grandparents. Now that is fine, that will definitely make you recover from your symptoms. But if the same concept goes with your parents, no, they will not suggest you, I don't think they would suggest you turmeric or something, but they again start saying you, no, this Nani's protocol is very old and we do not know whether that is really working or not. So better go with some herbal medicine like some Himalaya or Patanjali or some other Zinda Talisman, that was a very renowned thing during our times. So generally you will be suggested those things, and again this is also equally very effective and that will also cure you from the symptom. But if the same context goes to your friends or your sisters or your generation people, then they definitely cut off all these and they just simply say these are all time waste things. They do not work very well. They are all age old, outdated kind of medications. You go with simply a crocin or a paracetamol or some other drug, that is some other medicine that is very prevalent and very much branded. Then I just want to clarify you people that yes, all the three are very effective, all the three are very good at their point of action. because you are using in a correct way. Like you are using turmeric for cough, yeah, that is really suitable, yeah, that will work. Again, some Patanjali or herbal medicine for cough specifically, then it is also suitable, and an allopathic medicine is also suitable. But the point here is each kind of medicine has its own drawbacks. If you go for a crude treatment from a kitchen, that is practically possible for a simple symptom like your cough or headache or fever and anything, fine. But if the same goes with cancer or any other disease, say COVID, how many of you are drinking this kali mirch water and turmeric water and extract some curry, you say, that kind of things for COVID? Many of you have been using it, but why not they be so prominent nowadays that everybody can use it? You cannot suggest everyone to use it and just say that yes, if you drink this this kind of extract, it will recover you from COVID. You cannot say that, because this crude treatment, this crude kind of medication is not practically efficient always. So I can see some of my viewers again coming up. Thank you for your participation. Sai, Subhash, Amita ma'am, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, if I'm very fast or something, and you please suggest me in the comment section. And if you have any doubts or questions, or if you have any topic to be discussed specifically by me, I just request you to mention me there. I try resolving your doubts. So going back into drug designing, so these three are utilizable. These are efficient, but they have their own drawbacks. The crude kind of medication, it cannot be applicable always. It cannot be applicable especially in those cases like in severe or very acute diseases. Cancer, you cannot say that go to your nanny and just take some medicine to recover from cancer. No, it's not at all possible, right? But again, if it goes to headache or common cold, you go to your nanny. But again, for simple things like same again headache and cold, you cannot go for a doctor. Nobody says go for a doctor and just take some medication prescription. No, right? It is as simple as that. Again, what kind of medicine you use, what kind of, all of the three, let me make you very clear, all of the three comes under drugs only whenever it is used for a particular complication. If I'm using turmeric milk for a complication called cough and cold, that in that context turmeric becomes your drug again. You cannot say that turmeric is a crude extract. In this context, you say that turmeric is used as a drug to relieve from my symptom, that is cough and cold. So here all the three are drugs, but they have their own advantages and limitations. So fine, that is the difference between a traditional age-old kind of medication and an advanced technology. Now in computer aided drug designing, what we do is we are again dependent upon databases, the data sets that are related to different chemicals, different substances, different proteins, different biological molecules along with their functions. We have the access as bioinformaticians. We have access for several databases which stores information about chemicals, their activities, their functions, again their limitations, their structure, their properties, everything we know. So we utilize such databases and then we try to just check it out whether that particular known chemicals can be suitable for treating a new disease, a new outcome like this COVID. So that is how we work upon. And I'll be very frank in explaining you that no bioinformatician exists in the absence of a chemist, and no bioinformatician in fact can replace a chemist or an organic chemist or a drug science professional. No, it's not at all possible. We cannot replace those individuals, but we depend upon their data to make their research faster. We enhance the speed of their research, but again we are not independent because we again depend upon the data, the information that they work upon. We utilize the data that is already developed or that is already validated in the laboratory, and their data is further analyzed by us. So let me read some of your comments. Yeah, thank you Neetu. Yeah, thank you Manoj sir watching. Yeah, thank you all. So next, yeah, before digging deeper into what are the steps involved in drug designing, let me explain you certain terminology. Might be these you people are totally new, or even if you know, I will just have a brush up of these terms. First thing is drug. I have already explained you. Drug can be any chemical or non-chemical component that can be administered for treating a particular complication or a specific disorder. Again, I have to specify one point here. Never think that by taking a single drug, whole diseases are gone. Like say for example, same in the case of cancer. Cancer is a disease where you have several complications. It's not just simple like a headache or a stomachache, not like that. Cancer, you have so many other symptoms which are exhibited by a patient. So if you are going to treat cancer, there is no single medicine. Say if you take this medicine, yeah, cancer is gone. If you take this medicine, Alzheimer's is gone. No, it's not at all like that. If you take X medicine, diabetes is gone totally. No, it's not like that. Any drug, it has a specific action. Say in the same situation, cancer patients may exhibit sleeplessness, anemia, and vomiting sensation, headache, fever, and so many other complications in cancer conditions. So the doctors give you a list of medicines, each of which have its own activity. One may be involved in subsiding your headache, one may be involved in giving you the energy, one may be involved in preventing acidity that is formed because of the other drugs. So you have a list of medications that are prescribed by a doctor. Even if you go for a doctor for any complication, you always see a list of medicines prescribed by the doctor. Never he gives you a single medicine saying that yeah, this will treat all your conditions. Is it so? In very rare cases. So a drug is a medicine which is targeted to a specific symptom, not the whole disease again. So yeah, that is all about drug. If you have any doubts or anything much to be explained, you just mention me in the comment section. Yeah, bioinformatics aids in, I have just received a question from the viewers, how bioinformatics aids in drug designing. Yeah, so that is what I was speaking about. In bioinformatics, you have different tools, different databases, softwares, and different, what you can say is different emulator, whatever required for the development of a drug. So if I want to develop a drug, I need to first know what the disease is all about. I need to know what is the protein that is involved in a disease. I need to know what kind of chemicals which are already available in the, or which are already known to the society, so that I can test them, I can use them. I have to download even the structures of the proteins to check whether a given chemical compound is working on the protein or not. So for doing all those things, sitting on a system without anything is not possible again. It is completely the bioinformatics part which helps me in retrieving the data. Bioinformatics, I'll just show you in my further slides. I'll try showing you certain slides where I deal with what bioinformatics is all about and all. So this is how bioinformatics is helpful in drug designing. It provides you the informations like your data for disease, data for drugs, data for chemicals, and even the softwares for checking whether a given drug is suitable for a given chemical or not, for a given receptor or not. So I would just further clarify you in the next part of my session. So yeah, I think I can take your questions later, like once I deal with what drug designing is all about, because again I may go out of the track explaining all these questions. So just let me explain you what all about the drug designing steps, and then I will come to your question session. So next term that is important, very important in computer aided drug designing is the target molecule or the receptor. Now what is a receptor or what is a target? It is nothing but it is a protein molecule of the host. Now what is host? Host is something to which the medicine is to be given, or who is the victim of a particular syndrome, particular complication, who needs to be treated with a drug. So receptor or the target molecule is always a protein inside the human body if we are treating the human diseases. So I'll be very particular with human diseases only. So in this case, human protein is the target molecule. Now one more point here is, why only proteins be targeted? Why not the other components like carbohydrates and lipids? Why? Because carbohydrates and lipids, they do not have non-specific, they have very specific receptors, binding sites. And in case of carbohydrates, they do not even bind to the foreign particles. So only the protein component of your body is the one which is feast for the foreigners, that is the foreign particles to enter into your body, because these proteins have non-specific binding sites, or you call them as receptor sites, which will receive the molecules. That molecule may be even a medicine or may even be a pathogen that is actually causing the disease. So this is a good and bad side of a protein. The proteins are the main target molecules in your body, whether for a drug developer or for a pathogen to go and attack. So these non-specific receptors, non-specific binding sites are the ones which we are targeting in case of drug delivery. So receptor is nothing but the protein molecule that is within the body of your host, which is getting affected in a particular disease or which can be targeted to treat a particular disease. So that is all about receptors. And coming to the term ligand. What is a ligand? Just now I have given few terms like drug, chemical, medicine. All these comes for the same medication or the drug you are talking about. This same drug, before it has been proved whether it is suitable for a given complication or not, you just term it a ligand. Ligand is nothing but the same drug molecule, but before its efficiency has been tested or before it has been validated. So in my context of computer aided drug designing, whenever I say the term ligand, ligand always refers to my selected chemical compound or selected component that can become a drug after my analysis, after my efficiency check. So that is what about ligand. So I have explained you what is drug, what is a ligand, what is a receptor, and next important context is what is docking. Docking, I think everybody have heard the term, but in a different contexts. Docking is nothing but it's a bombardment. It's a near binding of a receptor to a ligand, or a ligand to a receptor. It is vice versa. Whenever I introduce a drug molecule into a host, it has to go and reach its target molecule and bind to it. That binding between a receptor and a ligand is called as a docking. So docking is simple binding between the receptor and the ligand. This receptor ligand docking is with respect to computer aided drug designing. You can just take an example of enzymatic reactions. Any substrate binding to its enzyme is a docking again. So that's all about the terminology which I wanted to make you people aware of. And next is steps involved in drug designing. So yeah, before entering into the steps, I just clarify one of the informative question which I have got. What is the difference between a vaccine and a drug? Yeah, that's a quite interesting question, and maybe most of you people would be interested in understanding this difference. Yeah, even when I started the session, I mentioned you that why not scientists are releasing some drugs or vaccines. So a drug, as I mentioned you in this whole session, the story, a drug is nothing but a chemical component given to treat a particular disease. But when it comes to vaccine, we can use the saying prevention is always better than cure. So vaccine is the thing which you give, which you administer to a particular person who is healthy, who is not infected yet. Vaccines are always administered to a healthy person to prevent himself from getting exposed or getting infected. So these vaccines are nothing but an attenuated form of the same pathogen which is actually causing the disease, or any pathogenic material of that particular infectious agent which is injected in a weaker form, in an attenuated form, actually attenuated in the sense in a weaker form, so that our body gets recognized. It recognizes who is our enemy, who is our foreign particle which is actually causing the disease. This immediately provokes our immune system. Thanks to the nature that it has given us so many inbuilt weapons in our body, even unknowingly, even in your sleep, they are constantly fighting against the foreign particles. Whenever any foreign particle enters into your body, it starts releasing the white blood cells, and these white blood cells are nothing but your soldiers in your body that fight against any foreign particle. Finally, two things may occur. Either the white blood cells can lose the battle, making you again prone for the infection, or they may win the battle by protecting yourself, by killing the foreign pathogen. But again, to be very clear, both of the situations are really helpful for you. Even when you lose the battle, there are immune cells that are already generated against that particular enemy. Now the body already identified that yes, there is some pathogen which has invaded us for the first time, where we have lost the battle, but now we have to be ready with the soldiers. We have to make them ready to fight this same pathogen whenever it comes for the second time. And this concept goes with the vaccine designing. Here the scientist or the doctor or any medical professional, he injects the attenuated vaccine, in attenuated pathogen, actually the weakened pathogen, into your body purposefully, so that your body first starts recognizing who is the enemy, and it starts making the soldiers ready. And these soldiers are nothing but memory cells, and these memory cells are very much ready to fight against this particular battle. And in case of vaccine designing, there is no chance that you lose the battle, because whatever injection, whatever administration has been done, that is with the weakened pathogen. So you know what is the energy of your soldiers, and you have already weakened the enemies. So now this definite that you will win the battle. Only sometimes you have a mild fever or some side effects, but vaccination is always done to prevent any infection, so that your body is ready. So generally you go for vaccination, the children, you go for BPT vaccine, polio vaccine. This is all done to prevent any infection, whereas drug is given after a person being affected with the disease. Now in case of COVID, we gave drugs to treat the already isolated patients, whereas the vaccines are not yet released anyhow. Even if they come in near future, they are administered for each and every individual who tries to prevent getting the infection. So vaccines are always preferable or gain a higher position than drugs, but drugs are only used in cases where we are helpless. We have to treat the already infected person. So that's all. I think I have clarified the doubt. So fine. Thank you, Nagaraj, for attending the live session. So yeah, fine. Yeah, one of the participant is mentioning it's T cells. Yes dear, it's T cells and also WBCs. So yeah, next, coming into the steps involved in drug designing. First thing, whenever you go for drug designing, it's also called as rational drug designing. As the name suggests, it's a rational. It's a step-by-step protocol. It's not random that whenever I find time, I do this part. Whenever I find time, I do the second part. It's not like that. It has a specific, tedious step-by-step protocol which a bioinformatician has to follow before he develops a drug. So first thing what you have to do is selection of a disease. When I start thinking that yes, I have to design a drug for a particular complication. Then my first step to be focused is which disease I am going to study. Here, selection of the disease is really very important, because there are certain cases where drug designing would not be a proper approach. Say microbial infections. In these cases, it's always preferable to have antibiotics or vaccines. But drugs are specifically used and especially focused in those kind of diseases where you have a metabolic disturbance. So yeah, metabolic disturbances always needs a drug to be rectified. So first select your disease which you are interested to design a drug for. After this step, you start studying in detail what the disease is, how this occurs, who is the pathogen, or is it a inbuilt disease. Like say you have diabetes. If you compare diabetes with COVID infection, a simple context, then diabetes is something which you are getting because of the defects in your body's proteins. Within your bodies there is something wrong which is creating a disease in you. Whereas in case of COVID, it is some external pathogen that is causing the disease. So both of them are diseases, but again one is inbuilt and the other is the exposure to the external pathogen. So in case of diabetes, you start designing a drug focusing a particular disturbance that is occurring in your body. So when you are studying about the disease, be very clear why the disease has occurred. Is that because of your own metabolic disturbances or genetics? There are certain genetic disturbances also, like say PCOD. PCOD is a genetic problem. Thyroid abnormalities, they are genetic problem. And you have several other diseases which are genetic in nature. To be very clear, genetic diseases can be treated by gene therapy, but it is obviously a very hectic task. Practically not practically it's a very hectic task. It is possible, but it's a very complex protocol. So we always try substituting that with the administration of drugs and several other operative protocols. So study the disease in detail. Again, here we completely seek the help of bioinformatics databases. There are several databases that will give you information about diseases, like NCBI, National Center for Biotechnology Information. It's a very big premier website which shares you information related to the books, the textbooks, the medical data, the patient data, the proteins, the genes, diseases, several other information. And there is also one database called Gene Cards, which will give you which proteins or which genes are playing a major role in causing which kind of disease. Anyhow, that is specific for the human diseases. So in this way, there are several databases that are provided by a bioinformatician that will help you in understanding, annotating and analyzing a particular disease. Fine. So once you study the disease in detail, what are the symptoms, what is the metabolic problem, and what are the outcomes and all, the next important step is what is the protein that is actually involved in the disease. In the sense, I mean to say, there might be some protein which may be a cause, or which may be an intermediate disturbance which is acting or which is provoking the disease to occur. Say the same example of diabetes. There you have insulin cells, like the cells that secrete insulin, the islets of Langerhans. If there is any problem with these cells, then obviously the insulin hormone is not released, and because there is no release of insulin hormone, you get diabetes. So here my context or my target protein should be insulin receptor, or islets of any protein that is responsible for the disturbance in the islets of Langerhans. It may be a receptor protein or it may be a target protein. So in this way, I need to select what is the exact protein which is causing or which is provoking the disease to occur. So fine. Again, here also bioinformatics will help you out. It has several databases which will deal with proteins, protein structures and all. So once I am clear about why this disease is occurring, then I will select the protein which is actually the cause for the, or I can say simply that I would select my receptor, I would select my target protein. Now, once I select my target protein, the third important step is analyze that protein, annotate that protein. Annotation in the sense you have to study that protein in detail. Like what is the physicochemical properties, like say for example that protein, whether it is stable or unstable, what is the molecular weight of the protein, and whether it is water soluble, and what is the half-life of the protein. There are several other parameters, like say is it a linear protein or an aromatic protein or a normal protein, unstable protein, stable protein. There are several such parameters. And what is its isoelectric point, what is its extinction coefficient. There are such certain parameters that a chemist generally deals with to study the protein in detail. So this kind of annotation has to be done. Again, there are several tools like ProtParam is there, SOPMA is there, HNN is there, QSite Finder, domain identification by SMART. So there are several other tools that are provided in bioinformatics that will help us in analyzing or annotating the protein, whether it is structurally or functionally or with respect to the physicochemical properties. The complete annotation can be done with the help of these softwares and tools. Both of them are there, both softwares and tools are there, so that we can analyze the data. So once I analyze the protein in detail, the fourth part is the actual part which comes for drug designing, which again here we start with a drug. The context of drug comes into the picture now. So again here also the fourth is most important step. I can just title it as chemical database creation. For this, again you depend upon chemical databases. There are certain chemical databases like CHEBI is there, Drug Bank is there, PubChem is there. There are so many, Target is there. So these are all the databases that has content, that has information related to the chemicals, substances, compounds, natural components, along with their structure, their function, then activity, if already they are used as medicines, where they are used, and what was the efficiency, along with the link for the literatures, the research publications. Everything is there in the databases. So as a user, what I do is I go to the drug data bank and then keep on searching for the function that I require. Again, it is not ready-made here. you cannot just go and type cancer and you get so many cancer drugs. That is already there. Then what are you to design? Not at all. So here you have to go and search with respect to the function. I would like to take a simple example of Alzheimer's here in this case. I think most of you or all of you know about the movie Ghajini. Yes? You know about the movie Ghajini? That is there even in Tollywood and Hollywood also. Sorry, Hindi, Telugu, everywhere it is, in all the languages it is there. So there the main concept is forgetfulness, or you can call it as short-term memory loss, right? So the science behind it is, whenever the sensation, like whenever the nerve synapses cannot pass directly from the effector organ to the brain, there is a distance, then it causes a memory loss. To repeat again, memory loss is nothing but it is a situation where our impulse, a message, is failing to reach the brain because of some disturbances in the path. And in case of Alzheimer's, this disturbance is nothing but the amyloid plaques. For non-science individuals, to be very clear, amyloid plaques are nothing but some protein molecules, some protein bulky complexes that are formed inside the brain, which are just disturbing the path of the signal. Actually, I will on the switch, the light should glow. But there is some connection problem in between, some problem with the wire, some breakage or some splitting, because of which my connection between the switch and the light is not working. Similarly, my switch here is my action, some scene, some incident which has to be, the message has to be passed via the veins to the brain. But there is some problem here in the synapse, in the nerves, which is causing this disturbance. In case of Alzheimer's, this problem is not in the nerves, like it is in the brain, and that problem exactly is because of the formation of amyloid plaques or protein blockages. So if I am doing some drug designing for Alzheimer's disease, then I always try to target this amyloid plaques, because it is already known. There are several research publications, several books that reveal that amyloid plaques are the main cause of Alzheimer's disease, the memory loss in case of Alzheimer's disease. So here my aim is to remove these plaques. Very simple. My aim is to remove these plaques, dissolve these blockages. These protein molecules have to disintegrate, have to burst these or disintegrate or hydrolyze these molecules, so that again my path becomes very clear. For that, I simply take up some proteases, some enzymes that are involved in dissociating the proteins, because I said amyloid plaques are nothing but protein blockages. So if I want to remove these protein blockages, I need to use some X molecule that is efficient in removing these protein blocks, and that X molecule is nothing but the proteases. So here proteases act as my drug. So my function here is protein dissociation or protein degradation is my function, and proteases are my ligands or the target molecules which I select to treat upon the problem, the receptor, that is amyloid plaques. I would just repeat this context. In case of Alzheimer's disease, the disease is Alzheimer's. The target protein which I meant is amyloid precursors, because these are the main reasons which are causing the blockages. So my target protein is amyloid precursor. My function that is required by the chemical is the removal of proteins or protein degradation, and the drug which I select here is proteases. So this is how a bioinformatician has to have an idea about what kind of chemical he need to select for treating a particular disorder. In case of diabetes, if I want to activate the receptor, if my insulin receptor is deactivated, then there my drug should have the property of activating the amyloid, like activating the insulin receptor. This is how we need to have an idea about drug designing. So these are all the tedious steps. After selecting the chemicals, now say for example, fine, I have got a good awareness about what chemical databases are, what is the function that I require in treating a disease. So say I have screened so many databases and have selected some 50 to 60 drug molecules. So I have a question from the viewers. Have you searched the related drug in tools? Do we have a particular step to search? Yeah, that is what I am going to explain in my upcoming session. So here I go for a drug data bank called PubChem for an example. There I search my function, and my function here is insulin activation, insulin receptor activation. Then I get a list of chemicals which have this function, because this is not a disease which I am searching about. I am searching about a particular function, and that function can be possessed by many chemicals, not a single. So all the list of chemicals that has this potential would appear in my result, in my output. So now what I do is, all of them I just archive, I just collect them in my own drug data bank, which I am going to create, customized drug data bank which I am going to create in my project for a particular disease. Now what I do is, once I got all the 50 chemicals, say for example I've got 50 chemicals possessing this function. After that, my next step is to screen them, to filter them. All the 50, I just simply cannot say all these 50 have my function, so just directly go and use them. You will be relieved from your diabetes, or you will be relieved from your Alzheimer's. No, not at all. Not as simple as we think. They have to go through a tedious process, a very tremendous screening, and the first screening out of it is screening for drug likeliness. So that is one of the important property that has to be possessed by any chemical or any substance to be used as a drug by a individual. Drug likeliness is nothing but it's a property possessed by a chemical to be used as a drug. Very simple. It's a property of any chemical or a component to be used as a drug is called drug likeliness. And how can we say whether a chemical is having this property or not? For that, you have a list of rules that have been prescribed by a scientist called Lipinski. Lipinski was an individual who have studied so many chemical components and so many drugs, and he has finalized certain rules and regulations which any chemical needs to follow to become a drug, or it only those chemicals which follow these principles would possess that drug likeliness. Now coming to what are these rules, the first important rule in Lipinski is why some drugs have side effects. I've just received a question from the viewer. Why some drugs have side effects? I will just explain this answer once I complete this Lipinski rule. So, and in fact they are interrelated. In case of Lipinski rule, the first rule is any chemical compound which has the molecular weight in between 300 to 600 grams per mole, they are only useful as a drug molecules. Now, why this restriction? Why a chemical compound, or why a protein, or why any component has to possess this limited molecular weight between 300 to 600? I would clarify this. If any compound having lower than 300 grams per mole, that is quite simple that it is very, very unstable. Lower the molecular weight, lower is the energy. But it is also unstable. Whenever you consume such kind of molecules, they dissociate very faster, that even before they reach the target, their function has been lost. So such chemicals you cannot use as drugs. Say if the same chemical is having a molecular weight greater than 600, then what exactly happens is, if I say the molecular weight is greater than 600, I mean to say it is very complex molecule. And if it is a complex molecule, obviously it takes much time to get absorbed into the body. Once you consume that tablet with water, it should get dissociated. It should get dissolved in your body, and then it should pass through the blood circulation. But if it is very high in molecular weight, it cannot do this function. It will get just stored there, and finally resulting in a poisonous compound called xenobiotics. There is a completely different path of science that deals with xenobiotics again, the pharmacy. So that we are not going to touch. But when you go for a molecular weight which is very heavier, then obviously they cause side effects, and that is what the answer for this question, why do we get side effects? If any compound that is having a very greater molecular weight, it will not get dissociated in the body. Once it is not getting dissociated, that will become a toxic component, because it is foreign, it is not very familiar to the body. So because it is getting stored, it becomes a xenobiotic component or a poison. This is causing a side effect. That is one reason. And second rule for Lipinski rule is hydrogen bond donors and hydrogen bond acceptors. There is always a limit for the number of hydrogen bond donors and acceptors, and this limit has to be followed by the chemical, because these acceptors and receivers are nothing but they are the parameters which will dictate how reactive a chemical component is. In case a compound doesn't have any receptors, hydrogen bond receptors or hydrogen bond donors, that itself means that it is unreactive. Unreactive is, obviously, it cannot heal our problem. If it is not reactive only, how can it clear our problem? It cannot. So such compounds cannot be used. But at the same time, if it is highly reactive, it is having so many hydrogen bond donors and acceptors that it reacts with each and every other component that it comes in, then it causes heavy side effects. That is the reason you cannot take any component which is unstable or which is highly active. Highly active chemical components are not ideal to be used as drugs because they cause tedious side effects. And the third point in drug designing, like the Lipinski rule parameters, is log p value. This term will be very technically for the chemist people, but log p in general is the parameter that will decide whether a given compound is soluble in water or not. What is its solubility in water and what is its solubility in the lipid phase, non-aqueous phase. So this value should be below 5 to state that that particular component can be dissolved in the blood, because in our body it is the blood into which the chemical compound has to be soluble, then pass through the circulation, then perform its function. So if I am injecting or if I am administering or any drug, it should be soluble, it should be completely dissolved in the blood. So that function is dictated with the parameter called log p value. So these are all the rules that are proposed by Lipinski to decide whether any given chemical can be a good drug or not. Means a chemical, whether it can be a drug or not, whether it has the drug likeliness or not, is decided by Lipinski rule parameters. So I hope I have clarified your doubt, and if any other confusions, you can just mention me in the comments. Yeah, so the next thing is in drug designing, the Lipinski rule for drug likeliness is over, and the next main filter that we have is ambiguity. If you see in the normal English language, ambiguity is nothing but it is a non-standard nature. Ambiguous means it is non-standard, it is non-ideal. So ambiguity is nothing but non-standard nature, and if anything that is not in its standard state obviously will not function its standard property. It will not have its standard properties, so it cannot function what we imagine. So any chemical that we are selecting that can be used as a drug, it should be very much ideal, it should be very much standard. That means the ambiguity of this chemical should be very low. So how you test whether a chemical is less in ambiguity or not? Again, we have separate tools and separate softwares. I will just mention one of it is Dundi Product Server. Yeah, Dundi Product Server is one of the very good tools that we use to check whether a given chemical has ambiguity in it or not. Even if it is ambiguous, obviously any chemical that has inherent ambiguity, because you know, you have studied in your chemistry, 10th chemistry, that no chemical exists in its ideal form, right? No chemical exists in its ideal form, but it has certain fluctuations from the ideal state, and these fluctuations can be acceptable for a particular, within a limit, within a threshold, it can be acceptable. So here my tool, my ambiguity testing tool, will tell whether this is falling within the threshold or not, or whether I need to reject these molecules. So initially I started with approximately 50 molecules which I am going to test for drug likeliness. Then I have eliminated in the drug likeliness, Lipinski rule, ambiguity. Finally I will be left with 2 or 3 molecules having my function. They are suiting to as per the Lipinski rule, they are very much good in the ambiguity also. Then I would finalize them to the docking studies. So my final step in drug designing is the docking studies. So here in docking studies, I need to check whether the given ligand, for the given receptor, for the given protein, whether my selected chemical is suitable with respect to structure or not. Like say my amyloid precursor is a protein in my Alzheimer's disease which I am targeting, and the drug which I have selected is a protease enzyme, because enzymes can also be the drugs, the proteins can also be drugs. So whenever I want to check whether these two goes a good couple or not, I have to check how this amyloid precursor protein binds to the protease enzyme. If this binding is very good, very stable, then that can be a good ligand docking pair, good ligand receptor pair. In case this binding is very unstable, very weak, then you can say that they cannot be functionally favorable, they cannot be structurally favorable, even though they are functionally suitable, complement each other, they cannot structurally complement each other, so they cannot be used. So that is all about drug designing. And let me mention you certain softwares for, yeah, in case of docking studies, we use softwares like Hex, Argus Lab, Gold, and Molgrow. There are several other in number of softwares for docking studies. So this is how bioinformatics tools, softwares, and databases in collaboration would help a scientist to discover a drug molecule. And finally, at the end of my whole research, I will be left with certain chemicals which I simply say that they can be a good drug, but I do not have any right to say that they are the drugs. So it is important to understand your limits, important to specify what it is. I only specify that at the end of my research, I have gathered certain chemicals, certain lead molecules which has the capability to become a drug. That is a bioinformatician's function. Finished. Our function is finished there. Our role is completed there. Next, these lead molecules are again tested in the laboratory. That is what these drug companies like Reddy's Lab, Aurobindo, Granules, what they do is they take up these molecules, they synthesize these molecules, and they test them in the lab animals. They test them in the first in the cell lines, and if it is okay there, it go for the lab animal stage, and if it is okay, then they take the FDA approval, and finally they go for the clinical trials. So this is the tedious protocol. Again, we are just playing bioinformaticians just play a single role which is completely prior to the drug synthesis. So this is all the protocol related to drug designing. Time. So I think I am exceeding out of my time. Is it mandatory to have any computer language knowledge? Yeah, this is a very interesting question I have received from Amita Kashyap, one of the participants. Yeah, she asks me that, is it necessary to have computer knowledge or computer language knowledge to go for drug designing? Absolutely not, because this drug designing, if that is an essential protocol, then even I cannot do any drug designing, because we do not have, as a life science professionals, we do not have much information, much knowledge about C++, Java and all, that are totally not our cup of tea. So here we do not require any languages information, but here we have to understand a basics of computer science, how to open your databases, and that is a completely different training again. Any person who is aware of science terms and after reading he can analyze the scientific data, then he can go with drug designing. They can go for a separate training as such, which will be very simple and easy once they are into it. So any other questions from the viewers? And I thank all the viewers for participating in my live session. I hope I made it very clear and up to the point. Yeah, FDA. One of my participants is asking, what is FDA? FDA is nothing but Food and Drug Administration. That is an organization. That is an approval body. Just like you have your CA to stamp on your account. Similarly, we have FDA, Food and Drug Administration, which will which will give us permission whether to go ahead with our drug development protocol or not, whether to go ahead with our molecules or not. They will first have, that is an authorized body. So fine, thank you all the participants, and if you have any further questions, I'll just stay a minute. I hope I was clear in the whole session. Yeah, fine. Yeah, a small information. If anybody is further interested to communicate with me or to learn more about the internships which we provide, yeah, I would be very much interested to mention one point here. If any of the viewers is interested to learn about these drug designing or bioinformatics or even any molecular biology concepts, microbiology and all, we from BioAccess have a separate service for them. We have a separate internship programs for the students and even non-students. We also undertake research by the PhD scholars. So if anybody is interested in us, you can just ping me separately, or you can just note down the email ID. It is info@dnares.in. I would mention once again, I would repeat it. It is info, info, info@dnares.in. You can just ping on our website, our Facebook ID. We are always happy to respond to your comments and your doubts. Thank you Suman Chaudhary and Nikita. Thank you Amita Kashyap. Thank you Shravani. Yeah, it is info@dnares.in. So with this I would just complete my live session now, and with your encouragement, if you people are fine with my pace and okay with these live sessions, you can just share me in the comment section. Would you like to have more such sessions, and what are the topics you would be interested in? And if anybody is interested in the internship programs, you can just ping me later, or you can message me in this session. So with this I would conclude my session. Thank you one and all.